entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog Fantasy, the year's second major PGA Championship from Valhalla Golf Club. We'll be taking a look at the field, the rules in terms of the cut rules, top 70 in ties this week. Don't forget that. The stats that matter, a course preview, and everything that you need to know to get yourself prepped. Byron and I have already done the player-by-player breakdown. That is out on Mayo Media Network right now for the video. If you want to see both of us chatting about it with all the fancy graphics, if you just want to listen to the podcast, easy. It's on the audio podcast feed for the Pat Mayo Experience. But I'm giving away some gifts this week to you good people out here. So smash the like. That will always help us. Share the show around. That will always help. And sub to Mayo Media Network. But if you want to get your hands on some giveaway prizes of $500 cash, that's one of the prizes. There are two annual memberships to fantasynational.com and a 1-month membership to shipitnation.com, as generously donated by Tambo, who will appear on this show on Wednesday, breaking down the DraftKings picks and all of the final bets, whether and what you need to know at the very last second about the PGA Championship. But in order to get into the draw for these things, a lot of the stuff you've already done, and that means you're still in the draw for it before. But if you're new or you haven't done it, this is how you can help us out. You can follow Mayo Media Network on Instagram. That will get you 5 ballots in the draw. Ditto for TikTok. Ditto for the free newsletter, which will have additional information coming at you for free all week long. You can subscribe, rate, and review the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast on Apple or Spotify. That will get you 5 ballots apiece. Shockingly enough, all this information is actually down in the description as well, with all the handy links to go all do this stuff. So if you want to get your hands on the $500, on the memberships to Fantasy National, whatever it might be, you do those things. But the one thing that you can do that will give you 25 ballots in the draw, go to UnderdogFantasy.com right now. Use code MAYO to sign up. For the PGA Championship, there is an exclusive bonus for using code MAYO. You will get a bonus on your deposit of up to $250, and you get a free square on Thursday to build a pick'em entry with. The drafts are now back live in Michigan. If you're from Michigan and you've been on the fence about this, boom, go use code MAYO right now. Just deposit $10. They'll match your $10. $10 goes up to $20 instantly. And you get a free square. You can play a $20 entry with that free square. Boom, easily turn that into 60. So you turn your 10 into 60, and you get 25 ballots in the giveaway draw to maybe get $500 cash. You get 2 of the Fantasy National memberships, which are $250 a piece, or the Ship It Nation one, which is $100 for the month. So easy ways to do that. They all support the show, so we can continue to bring all this stuff for free. The big one is, if you want more content, especially when we're going to President's Cup this year, code MAYO at Underdog Fantasy. That is the biggest thing you can do to help out both Mayo Media Network, the Fantasy Golf Degenerates, the Pat Mayo Experience. And if you're a fan of free and more content, that is what you need to do. All right? Help us out over here. Code MAYO at Underdog Fantasy. Well, let's get talking about the course. Valhalla Golf Club, playing as a par 71 for this PGA Championship, 7,609 yards, T1, Bentgrass green. The average green size, a mere 5,000 square feet. The number of sand bunkers, 62, 7 holes with water in play. And this was a Jack Nicklaus design in 1986. Big year for Jack, winning the Masters as an old man and designing a course which would go on to host now its 4th PGA Championship, has hosted a Ryder Cup, and it's been at the forefront, really, over the past 3 decades or so as a major venue in the American golf scene. They rebuilt all the greens in 2011. You saw these at the 2014 PGA Championship, so it's nothing new. And they resurfaced the tees and fairways, changing them from Bentgrass to Zoysia grass in 2021. And honestly, there's maybe nothing funnier than a golf club espousing the virtues and sustainability of the environment, because they took the bold stance of changing grass types, frankly, to save money on water. But they won't tell you that part. They can Barry Horowitz themselves on the back all day long for saving the planet, as long as the price is right. If anyone was ever wondering how you get people to turn to alternative ways of thinking, if solar power was super cheap, everything would run off solar power. I know this is not breaking news, but it's just hilarious when you see these country club guys be like, we're trying to save the environment with a better strain of grass for our golf club. Yeah, you don't have to water as much, pal. Figure it out. Well, sorry, we did figure it out. The project consisted of changing the fairway turf and tee tops from bent to Zion Zoysia. That's a total of 30 acres, and they were installed in 3-month increments. And this is a warm season grass with a more narrow blade than the traditional zoysia grass, which closely mimics the look of bentgrass, but tolerates much shorter mowing heights than the traditional zoysia. And it was changed for myriad reasons. Bentgrass is difficult to turf manage in what's known as, quote, the transition season. That's the area between mild conditions where the cool season grass thrives and the not hot, humid conditions where the warm season grass thrives. Zion Zoysia fairways also allow for firm and fast playing conditions all season long, as opposed to the seasonality of bentgrass. Again, that's Zion Zoysia, not Zion Zoysia. So if you were thinking about going to protest the course, this probably wouldn't be ideal for the turf management, mind you, if you started walking around the course. I don't know how the Zion Zoysia holds up for that, but don't expect protesters to be outside, especially, listen, the Valhalla bigwigs who were saving the money on the grass to begin with, they are not going to subsidize the protesters' demands for new Apple Watches and a bunch of vegan meals. So don't expect that in Kentucky this week. There are new tees at 1, 12, 14, and 18, plus there were aesthetic changes made to a few of the holes. A lot of that had to do with the limestone outcropping around it, which you will notice on TV, but really doesn't have that much change to the actual play of the course. You can now expect exposed large limestone shelves that support a waterfall around the green on 13. It's going to look very nice. I've seen pictures of it. It looks fantastic. Going to look even better on TV. In hole 18, they changed the tee box completely to create better sight lines, and the water feature around the green has been enhanced for a more dramatic look when you see it from the tee. One of the biggest things you need to realize about the PGA Championship now versus when we saw it a decade ago in 2014 when Rory won is just the difficulty of the PGA Championship versus what it was then. So when you take a look back at 2010, Martin Keimer wins at Whistling Straits over Dustin Johnson in the playoff. Everyone remembers that's one where Dustin grounded his club and what would no longer be, it's now like a waste bunker. You can ground your club. Anyway, he missed the playoff because of that. He won at -11. After that, -8, -13, -10, -16 for Rory when he won here in 2014, -20 for Jason Day at Whistling Straits. Jimmy Walker wins at -14 the year after. And it did seem after that there was a concerted effort. This in 2017, it was still contested in August, and then it did end up switching to May, which is one of the main reasons for the renovation at Valhalla this time around to deal with the more frigid conditions in May. I mean, frigid in Kentucky being very loose, but versus what it is in August, then yeah, it's much colder and much more difficult to maintain your turf management. But as soon as Quail Hollow in 2017, it's like the PGA of America said, you know what, we're going to make this more US Open-y. It's going to be super long. It's going to be more penal rough, and the winning scores are just frankly going to be higher. We saw that with a single-digit winner in 2017 at Quail Hollow with Justin Thomas. It got away from them a little bit with Brooks Koepka in 2016, but I believe there was only 4 players that were double digits under par. He wins at -16. And then after that, 4 of the past 5 champions have all been single digits. Some pretty high ones as well. Brooks wins again at Bethpage. That's at -8. That's by 2 strokes. Morikawa wins 2020, no fans, during COVID at Harding Park at -13. That's been the easiest of the PGA Championships of the past 5 years. Phil wins at -6 by 2 over Brooks and Louis. At Kiowa, Justin Thomas wins in a playoff over Will Zalatoris at Southern Hills at -5. And Brooks won a year ago at -9 by 2 strokes over Victor and Scotty Scheffler at Oak Hill. Of course, that wasn't very long, but very narrow fairways, very thick rough, which made a major impact on the entire field and especially the scoring as we went along. I think one of the major changes that you're going to see here with the zoysia grass now being populated around the course, especially around the green complex, is that we didn't see a ton of runoff. Just for whatever reason, with the conditions that they had, maybe it was the bent grass, but a lot of balls were sticking up instead of going to the massive rollout areas off the greens at Valhalla in 2014. But I don't think that's going to be the case now. Maybe in the forecast, it does look very rainy with thunderstorms. So maybe we get a very damp PGA Championship, which would make the rough very, very penal. You might want to get some more accuracy guys on your card after that. But I'm guessing that they can dry it out enough to get those firm and fast conditions that they were looking for. Firmer and faster than they were in 2014. Obviously, you can't do anything about the weather. That might make an impact. But these rollout areas from around the green, instead of the ball staying up and maybe even going down like midway on some of these hills and stopping, they're just going to go full rollout. A lot like we saw at Southern Hills 2 years ago when Justin Thomas won in Oklahoma. So keep that in mind, that you're going to have to rely a little bit more on around the green play, or the most precise iron play, which just no one in the world has at this point to be perfect on every single hole. And maybe you're going to be able to putt from some of the off the green in some of these. It's something we're going to see a lot at Pinehurst in a month's time at the U.S. Open. A lot of putting from off the green onto those upside down bowl greens that they have at Pinehurst. But that's how Martin Keimer really did it. I mean, he had a ton of greens in regulation that year, don't get me wrong, and just played fantastic golf. That's why he won by 8 strokes. But he was able to utilize the Texas wedge from off the green because he is a horrendous short game player, but he's won the Players and he's won at Pinehurst, 2 places where you can putt pretty easily from off the greens if you choose to. Let's take a look at Valhalla in threes. This is the 3rd longest course to date that the PGA Tour players have played this year, behind Torrey Pines South and Corrales. It is the 3rd smallest green complexes they're going to see at 5,000 square feet, behind Pebble Beach and Harbor Town. And it's only the 3rd Bentgrass greens that these players will have encountered so far this year. A lot of the Bentgrass and Bermuda got changed to POA Trivials, so classified under POA this time around. So the only actually classified Bentgrass greens by the grounds crew of the course of America are Augusta National and TPC Craig Ranch at Byron Nelson, which we saw 2 weeks ago, which weirdly, although that is a very easy scoring course, it's very long, and over 50% of the approach shots come from over 175 yards, 30% coming from beyond 200 yards, which is exactly what we're going to see this time around. Each of the 3 past winners of the PGA Championship at Valhalla were inside the top 5 after round 1. 2 of the 3 were winning after round 2, and Mark Brooks was in 3rd, following the conclusion of the 2nd round of the 1996 PGA Championship. That year, Mark Brooks beat Kenny Perry in a playoff at 11 under 2000, probably the most remembered PGA Championship. Whenever Tiger is involved, and it's a historic Tiger moment, we remember it. Tiger birdied 17 and 18 to force a draw with Bob May, but then we remember the first playoff hole when he walks in the big putt, points at it, drops down, the dark red shirt, almost very reminiscent to the shade that I'm wearing right now in this video. It will just be etched in our memories over time, that one drop. It's not quite as famous as the drop of the Nike ball at the Masters to beat Chris DeMarco on 16, but the point is up there in all-time Tiger Woods moments. Ryder Cup in 2008, the U.S. wins. 2014, as I mentioned, Rory beat Phil, hitting into the darkness, playing with Bernd Wies. I will still remember Bernd Wiesberger melting down in the final group, playing with Rory. Phil and Ricky were just ahead of them, and darkness was coming. It was here at that point, and Rory and Bernd basically hit into Ricky and Phil onto the 72nd hole to finish off on the Sunday over everything else. 2018, the Boys Junior PGA Championship was there. Your winner, Akshay Bhatia, back-to-back winner of the Boys Junior PGA Championship, defending his title from 2017. Again, if you want to do the deep dive on the research yourself, fantasynational.com/Mayo will get you 20% off all membership levels, and you get the exclusive member app for Android and iOS. It is the only way you'll ever follow golf again. It's amazing. I would highly recommend. I would pay $250 just to get that app. I mean, I spent more than that because, I put my money into this company, but it's amazing. I'm so glad with how it has turned out so far. Everyone agrees it's been an amazing app. You get that along with all of the other tools that come with the PGA Championship. 156 players in the field. As mentioned, top 70 and ties are going to make the cut. So let's take a look at the course itself for Valhalla GC. So we'll take a look at this and what happened in 2014 to get a better sense of everything. Now, the course is going to be a little bit different. We talked about the different grass types, and it has been lengthened a lot over the time by about 100 yards or so. If you see, this is kind of fun. That number 18 is the easiest hole on the course. It's a par 5, 50% birdie rate, 4% eagle rate. There are some other ones that have a pretty decent eagle rate as well. Number 4, the par 4, 372 yards, had almost a 2% eagle rate, a 32% birdie rate. It's not often at major championships do you see I guess it could be drivable on the right day, but just such an easy par 4 I think that will end up playing tougher this time around. Yeah, 32% birdie rate, the second easiest hole on the course. Other than that, you have the other two par 5s, number 7 and number 10, playing as the third and fourth easiest holes on the course. Then you have number 9, the 415-yard par 4, which actually plays under par. We're thinking about the hardest holes, number 2, number 6, all long par 4s. One is 500 yards, one is 495. And then you have this closing stretch, very reminiscent of Quail Hollow in a way, but then you have this outlier at number 18. So almost like Torrey Pines, not in the way that it's situated, but on the scorecard, how the difficulty ends up playing itself out. The third, fifth, and sixth most difficult holes on the course are 14, 15, and 16, with number 17 being a hole that the field bogeys almost 20% of the time with only a 14% birdie rate before you get this gimme on 18. It's not the easiest. I mean, it's the easiest hole on the course, but I wouldn't say it's like the easiest hole in the world. Very high eagle rate, very high birdie rate at almost 50%, but there's still an 8% bogey rate. You can get it going badly on this hole, but the doubles or worse are almost non-existent, where going through 14, 15, and 16, a long par 3, a shortish par 4, which is just very hard, and then the longest par 4 on the course at 508 yards, number 16, all have double or worse rates of 3, 6, and 6%, with bogey rates all over 20%, with number 16 pushing up around 30%. So that's what we see from the scorecard itself. We take a look at what happened in 2014 by round. Approach and putting was the main cog, but approach wasn't even double what off the tee was, and around the green did play a huge factor. If we shrink that down a little bit more to just the top 5, and we see approach was actually the lowest. I've never actually seen that before, and that's what a 1-year sample can give you of everyone who was on. Putting meant the most. I mean, putting's going to mean the most, but that's not the most predictive thing going. But just a balanced tee to green game was so necessary at this course, and it will. I probably would guess it will be very much the same thing this time around. And it was, you beat up on the par 5s. That's what you had to do. If you didn't beat up on the par 5s, you were cooked at this course. The par 3s didn't even really make that big of a difference versus the overall scoring. They're all just kind of hard. No one was making up ground. The ground was made up on those par 5s. Taking a look at the holes, it's pretty balanced, but it's the average shot distribution which frankly sticks out a ton. I know I said over 50% of the shots come from 175 plus, and they do. It's just 34% of them come from 200 plus. You don't usually see that big of a spike. It's fairly flat actually outside of that. 175 to 200, 18%, 17% from 150 to 175, 12% from 125 to 150. Then you have your shots from around the green and layups, that sort of thing. The cut line in 2014 was +2. Probably be back around there as well. The average driving distance was a little bit lower at this course, although if it doesn't get the sogginess and the rain that maybe we're expecting, then maybe that will roll out a little bit longer. So be playing from the rough is something that you're going to see a little bit more. 3 putts per round were a little bit lower, but a lot of that has to do that these are such small greens versus your average PGA Tour event that they were just inherently going to be lower, like you see at Pebble and Harbour Town. It's hard to 3-putt when the greens are super small. Driving accuracy was up versus a Tour event. Greens regulations were down. So very difficult greens to hit, probably harder if it's firmer this year, but players were finding the fairway more often than not. And we take a look back at the leaderboard from that year, you're going to see an eclectic mix of players. Guys who gain strokes off the tee by and large, but do it in vastly different ways. So if we just go take a look at one of Rory's 25 PGA Tour Championship wins, we take a look back at 2014. Again, you can access all of this on fantasynational.com. You can go get the 20% off right now at fantasynational.com/Mayo, or get yourself into those giveaway draws. All the giveaways are mentioned with links down in the description of the podcast and video right now. They'll also be reiterated into the newsletter at the very top when the new newsletter comes out on Monday morning. But if you just want to make quick work of it and try to get into the draw for a free annual membership to Fantasy National, you can go do that using code Mayo at Underdog Fantasy by getting that $250 deposit bonus plus a free square for the PGA Championship with code Mayo. It's probably something you're going to want to do. You can win money off that anyway, and you might get extras thrown in on top of it. Rory beats Phil. Stenson and Ricky were tied for third. Ryan Palmer and Jim Furyk both tied for fifth. Ernie, Stricker, Mahan, Mikko Alonen, and Victor Dubasson and Jimmy Walker round up the top 10. Even after that, like, this couldn't be a weirder mix of guys. Oh, poor Bird. I thought it's funny that I thought he shot 80 in the final round. He only shot 74 in the final round, but just to see him drop so gracefully, I suppose. I guess it wasn't all that graceful, off the very top of the leaderboard, playing in the final group to come T15 is kind of crazy. We have like Chappell, Snedeker, Brooks came 15th, Day, and Graham Dillette all 15th. So you have these guys that are massive ball strikers, like someone like Graham Dillette. Graham Dillette was like sort of like the homeless man's Brooks Koepka. He was Brooks Koepka if Brooks couldn't chip or putt and had a bad back. That was Graham Dillette's profile. So it's not a shocker that you see long, straight Brooks with a good short game up there. But at the top, like Rory just went and mashed. He sent full driver, and the rest of his game is good enough to make up for it. Phil the same way. We know that he's not the most accurate player on earth, but he could bomb it even back then. And his short game and putting, I mean, his putting is always hit or miss, but the short game is untouchable versus the history of the PGA Tour. He's one of the best short game players of all time. Stenson, not so great around the greens, but what does he do differently than a lot of these guys on this list? Well, he has minus distance by and large, but he's very accurate. Same with Jim Furyk. Steve Stricker, another one, just relying on accuracy to get themselves up. And let's see if that translated through in the actual stats of the 2004 PGA Championship. You see Rory, so Phil missed the fairways. Rory gained on the field, so did Stenson and Ricky Fowler in terms of fairways gained. You see Furyk gained a ton against the field. Funny that Stricker didn't do that. He must have gained 11 billion strokes putting then. And that's the outlier why he's ended up being there. That would be my guess. We can take a look at that in a second. But driving distance gained, Stenson was slightly below field average. Furyk was way below field average, but gained with all that accuracy. Stricker was way below and was slightly below in terms of fairways. And everyone else, like Snedeker, lost with distance, but gained a bunch on fairways. And then you see the guys that really missed it and were like way below. Like Jimmy Walker was way below the field in terms of fairways gained, but he gained, what's 45 on the field? That is top 10 in the field in terms of distance. So Bubba led all players in terms of driving distance. JB Holmes, Kentucky guy, also way up there, but everyone else did really well on the leaderboard. So you have Rory, you have Brooks, were second and third, first and 15th on the leaderboard. Then it was Day and Scott, 15th, 15th. Fowler and Ryan Palmer, third and fifth. Graham Dillette, there he is, comes in ninth. Someone named Jamie Broyce, very Broyce. He must be a PGA Tour pro professional, but he actually bombs it, apparently. So Palmer and Dillette were 5th and 15th. You go to Chris Wood, came 46th, so a bad week all around for him outside of the driving distance. But after that, you have Louis, Jimmy Walker, and Charles up next, 15th, 7th, and 15th. Anyone that tells you driving distance doesn't matter at PGA Championships these days or US Opens is crazy. Don't listen to them. It is the number one thing that we need to be targeting off the tee. So we'll splice driving distance when we model this out along with strokes gained off the tee. We don't want to overlook fairways gained at all. It is important. We can see the different paths to be able to do this, but driving distance sticks out amongst almost everything else. Fairways gained, these guys, you have one guy inside the top 10 of fairways who finished inside the top 10. That was Jim Furyk. You had Chappell who came 13th. They were 3rd and 4th. Rory, crazily enough, was 15th in accuracy for the week, but everyone else is just kind of down there. It kind of shows you all these, you see all these minuses in terms of driving distance on the screen with a very high fairways gained. Didn't matter. These guys all finished outside the top 20 by and large or missed the cut. So you really need to put that emphasis. All things being equal, just lean on distance over accuracy this week. Good drives gained. It's funny that this isn't more telling because good drives gained, if you hit your green in regulation, you're going to be good. Didn't really translate all that much. Left avoidance, that you see, no, nothing really doing there. Right avoidance, nothing really doing there. Greens and regulation gained. You think that guys hitting a bunch of, on small greens especially, gaining greens and regulation against the field. It was helpful, but it wasn't like everyone was populated near the top of the leaderboard just because they hit greens and regulation. No, it was driving distance. Again, that's what we've seen versus all of these other stats that we're looking at. It's driving distance leading the pack. Maybe sand saves? Sand saves were actually up there. Stenson, Dubuisson were number 1 and 2, 3rd and 7th on the leaderboard. You had Brian Norman and Jordan Spieth, the next two. They both missed the cut. Chappell did very well there. It's funny that Chappell must have lost 80 strokes putting. If he had these, he was the only guy on this board with positives across the board and still only came in 13th. Ryan Palmer, very good out of the sand. Westwood and Willett were really good that year, but it wasn't imperative. A better way to go about it is just don't put the ball in the bunker. Then you're going to be fine. Strokes gained. From 2014, we see off the tee, Rory, boom, mashes. Was he number one? Number one by a stroke over Dubuisson, or by 0.1 of a stroke over Dubuisson, and then a full stroke over Rose and Grace and Chappell and Dillette. Oh yeah, there we go. It's crazy that I guess the approach play for Chappell, he was hitting a lot of greens in regulation, but he wasn't actually putting it all that close to the hole. That's where greens in regulation, strokes gained approach. Not that strokes gained approach is the end-all be-all of anything, but that is probably why you see his number down. He's just leaving a lot of lag putting and 2-putting for par and not generating enough birdie chances to contend with the very top of the leaderboard. But by and large, strokes gained off the tee was very predictive. Only one guy, you see, Ross Fisher, gained 3.5 strokes off the tee, and he ended up missing the cut. But that's where you see a lot of them up there. Let's see strokes gained approach. Louis, Jimmy, Watney, Stricker. So here's Stricker. Stricker lost 3 strokes off the tee, 2 strokes around the green, 7.6 on approach, 9 on the greens. That is not a way that you really want to attack this course. I mean, if you can do that, then yes, attack the course that way. Sort of an outlier, I would guess. Gaining 9 strokes has to be there. 9.2 for Stenson. So Stenson was all putting, so was Steve Stricker. So again, the two of the 3 players that I pointed out as not great with distance, more fairway type guys, minus distance versus the plus distance, had to do it with 9 strokes putting and 9.2 strokes and 8.9 strokes putting. That's how they found themselves there. So again, you probably don't want to rely just because you see those names pop up. That doesn't tell you the story of why they ended up where they did in 3rd and 7th place. It was because they ran such a nuclear putter. For example, like Rory had a great week putting. He gained 4.4 strokes. Ricky had a great week putting. He gained 4.3 strokes. Those guys gained more than double what Rory and Ricky did on the greens by themselves. You got to make your putts, though, because there's Phil. Let's try to see where are some weird outliers here. So Stricker's the weird outlier, losing off the tee and around the greens. Other than that, like Phil was very balanced tee to green. If we just sort by tee to green, Dubaissant was the best. Day was second best. Day dropped strokes putting. How about that? And then Rory was 3rd. Rose only wasn't up there because he lost 3 strokes putting. I mean, weirdly, to take a look at this was Dubaissant's tournament to lose. If he had just broke even with the field, he probably gets himself into that playoff, or even just middles out what Rory did. He doesn't need to gain 4.4 instead of turning -2 into +2, which isn't even a lot at this tournament based on where the leaders are at. He's either wins or he's in that playoff. Funny to see, like when you retroactively go back and rejigger everything and try to reconstruct how players got to where they were and why they were such letdowns. So in terms of tee to green, it's funny that only the 3 of the top 4 in tee to green actually lost strokes putting. Then you have no one until you get down to the Joost Luiten from the Netherlands. He ended up coming 26. It was very good tee to green, most of that on approach, some of it chipping. But if you're just looking for the balance across, Dillette was very good balance-wise. So was Adam Scott. So was Phil Mickelson. Brooks was very good in that regard, just didn't make enough putts to separate himself from the pack. I'm betting Brooks Koepka to win, by the way. 16-1 is the best number I can find right now. I don't think it's going to get any worse by Monday. If you're watching this on Monday, I've already bet Brooks because the betting show is probably already out. He just seems perfectly situated for this course and the way that PGA Championship setups are currently constructed. So a full grasp of tee to green is something that you're going to need. You're just not going to hit enough greens in regulation to say, you know what, my chipping doesn't matter. That's what I worry about for someone like Victor Hovland. We try to take a bit of a different look at some of the different players. We broke this down on the player-by-player show, but Victor Hovland, just strokes gained around the green over the past 24 rounds, 139th. In the field, and taking a look at that a little bit more deeply. Fortunately, he putts really well on Bentgrass. That is in his back pocket. We saw him play well at the I don't know, he didn't play well at the Masters. He played well at the Masters the year before that. But just the strokes gained around the green have been abysmal. Like it's frightening how bad they are. When you lose 7 at the Players, I mean, just throw that one out. It would still be bad if you threw that one out. I don't know how you can, and he's chipped better at major championships than he has done in your standard PGA Tour events. I will give Victor that, but I just don't know how you can go that route with the amount of greens and regulation that are likely to be hit this week. Let's build a rudimentary model, and then maybe we'll try to do some Nicklaus Course type stuff and build a mixed condition model to give us a different type of view of how this course is actually going to play itself out. So we want to go into new model mode on fantasynational.com/Mayo to get yourself Valhalla, the Rainbow Bridge to Valhalla. Do we want strokes gained total? Now we're going to throw that out. We're going to add a stat. Driving distance. It's the first thing that really leaped out to me off the screen. We'll add that, and then we'll just throw in just your strokes gained tee to green. Who is a very balanced player on the board? That doesn't mean that we don't want to see individually the others off the tee approach, but where we have them weighted twice, they don't need to be as significant in the weighting as maybe they would be at different times. I don't want to say that putting is irrelevant because it's not. You're going to have to make some nice par saves from 10 to 15 feet. So by and large, I try to go 5 to 10, 10 to 15, but there's a major championship, so we'll do 10 to 15 and 15 to 20 feet. We've seen 10 to 15 feet be relatively sticky over time, but when we throw it into the mixed condition model, we'll get bentgrass putting and major championship putting in there as well. So we'll go 10 to 15, 15 to 20, and we'll take a look at proximity from beyond 200 yards instead of just the par 3 range of 200 to 225. So where are we at here with proximity? Proximity 200 plus. We'll also put in eagles gained, which kind of coincide with everything, but we did see that there are 2 to 3 holes, especially number 18, where you can make eagles. You make an eagle in a major championship, you're going to be having a good time on the leaderboard, especially if you're playing on Underdog or DraftKings or any daily fantasy where there are bonuses associated with that as well. So beyond outright betting, these are avenues that you can take to try to enhance some players from lower positions because they end up scoring more fantasy points than anything else. What else should we throw onto here? I don't know why I just did that. I threw on 225 par 3. Did not mean to. Let's do the longer par 4s. We'll go par 4s, 400. We'll say it's 500 plus because some of these play uphill a little bit, that they probably actually measure more around 500 yards than anything else. So how do we do this? There is no one simple solution to which stat should be in a model or which weighting that you should give anything, but we saw driving distance matters. Let's weight that pretty highly. Tee to green mattered. Let's weight that just around the same. So we'll go lower for off the tee, approach, and around the green. Since we saw those were relatively flat. Again, a 1-year sample. If I had a longer sample, I could almost guarantee you that approach would be more than that. We'll go 15 and 20, about the same. So these weightings are coming all around 10, 9%. Doesn't really matter to me. I just use the slider to give myself a visual of what I want to be more important, and that is driving distance and tee to green, which are now currently weighted at 26 and 25%. By the time we add in the proximity, eagles, and par 4s gained, that'll be around 20, I'm guessing. So we'll go 20%. These will be the next tier down of weighting. So we have that tier 1 of weightings, distance and tee to green, coming at 22 and 21%. Then you have off the tee, approach, and around the green, the components of tee to green, and the putting 10 to 15, 15 to 20, all at 8 and 9%. Then proximity 200 plus, eagles gained, and 500 plus par 4s at 5 and 4%. So it just gives you a tiered system of the weightings that I want to use. We shall update the model and see what the results will tell us. Oh, shocker, Scotty's number 1 over the past 24 rounds. Who's the worst? The real deal, Sean McKeel, John Daly, Michael Block, and Alexander Bjelk are your bottom 4. Best players in the field: Scotty Scheffler, Wyndham Clark, Rory, Tony Finau, and John Rahm. The live stats and stats for players on the Asian Tour or European Tour are just not going to be as good as the PGA Tour stats because live can barely get a leaderboard on their website that works, let alone calculating strokes gained data. So it's all just taken from past majors. So Rahm's performance at past majors, and he still does have his past 24 events. But some of the guys that left very early, like let's say Dustin Johnson, for example, I put in Josh Johnson, and we take a look at their past 24 rounds, they might all be major championships, or are they? Yeah, going back to the 2022 AT&T, Byron Nelson would be the one before that, before he ended up just playing in PGA Championships and Masters and leaving for Live. So keep that in mind when you're trying to do that. That's why the stats aren't going to be the end-all, be-all of a lot of things. Dustin ranks out number 12 in the model, by the way. He does have a win on the Live Tour so far this year. After the big 5, you have Xander, Hideki, Keith Mitchell, Ben An, and Min Woo Lee. When you weight driving distance as high as I did, Min Woo is going to pop out. I believe he had a really nice PGA Championship a year ago, and I do think that there is some stickiness now, year over year, with consistent setup, despite the courses all being a little bit different. Yeah, he was 18th at last year's PGA Championship. We can look at some of the best players who've done that. As I talked through with Byron on the player-by-player, that putting together the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open into one bucket might be a better way to go about things, since they've all played pretty similarly over time. So some of the names that you would guess would be up there: Brooks, Scotty, Victor last year, Bryson, of course. I like Bryson this week as well. If people need to know, I'm betting Brooks at 16. I'm waiting to see if there's going to be a better number on Monday morning. If it's not, it's going to be 16. I bet Sahith Theegala at 66 to 1. However, as of this recording, he is 90 to 1 on FanDuel if you want to get in the game for that. And I had bet Wyndham Clark at 66 to 1 to win the PGA Championship in February. I'm still pretty good with that number since he's currently 30 to 1, 35 to 1 to win here. So again, you kind of see it. Driving distance above all else. Brooks, Bryson, Victor, Scotty, Cam Davis, Kitayama, even Straka is no slouch off the tee, then Rory. Then you get to some of your shorter hitters. I mean, Cameron Smith is actively bad off the tee. He just has to do everything else well. If he can just somehow break even for the week off the tee. The rest of his game is good enough to win. I don't love him at a long course like this to win. To come T9, T4, whatever it might be, absolutely. It always does feel like Augusta National and Open Championships are going to be the venues for Cam Smith versus some of the other guys. We've seen it with Brooks. He's only won U.S. Opens and PGA Championships. Bryson was in the mix at the Masters. I'll give him that. He was in the mix kind of at St. Andrews, which is sort of an outlier amongst the Open Rota, but his game plan is going to be U.S. Opens and PGA Championships, and we've seen the results coincide with that. Connors is another one, although he's been very good at the Masters some of the time, good at PGA Championships as well. Shane Lowry, another one, U.S. Opens and PGA Championships, just with the type of game that they have. Old Michael Block, there he is, good for him. Xander is another one that you would want at PGA Championships at U.S. Opens. Morikawa has played really well both at PGA Championships and U.S. Opens. Pendrith was top 30 in this field a year ago, coming off a win 2 weeks ago at the Byron Nelson, which has very similar approach shot buckets. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the most predictive course because that's a scoring course, and obviously this is not, but nice to see that he finished very high up in a PGA Championship before going through anything else. If you want more information on some of the different players and previous results that go into translating to major championships, Byron Lindahue, who I did that show with at the Model Maniac on X, has already tweeted out a thread of just weighting past championships, mainly PGA and U.S. Opens, and giving them a scoring throughout that. Will Zalatoris, very good. Ludwig, in his one major championship, very good. Has never played a PGA or a U.S. Open and did WD this week with a knee injury. I would expect him to be fine. However, overall, past 24 rounds, driving distance-wise, let's extend this a little bit. You got Dean Burmeister, who's been playing on LIV and playing really well on LIV. Won in South Africa at the Alfred Dunhill in December, won at Doral, another Bombers course. So keep Burmeister on your radar for this week. Ranked 16th in the modeling, 3rd in driving distance. The top 10 in driving distance overall, no shocker. Bryson, number 1. Ben An, number 2. Burmeister, Rory, Wyndham Clark, round out the top 5. Minwoo, Rom Toasty, Gary Woodland, Vince Norman, Dustin Johnson are next on the list. Then you have Keith Mitchell, Taylor Pendrith, Finau, Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth, Ryan Fox, Tim Wilden, Mr. Korn Ferry Tour himself, Andy Ogletree, who plays on LIV, Lucas Hebert also plays on LIV, or Lucas Herbert, as the English like to call him, which he is, so that's probably his name. It's not like he is from France and smoking the long cigarette. If he did, he'd be Lucas Hebert. He tried to win the championship like his main man who should have won in 2013, the Vicar Dubesson, with the great haircut and the visor and the long cigarette, you know? Steven Yeager, also up there. Kitayama, another name that we saw last year inside the top 5 on the leaderboard. Neiman, Thigala, Burns. Then you're into your Brooks, Jake Knapp, Patrick Rogers, Xander, Marankadonk, the Marankanrola. Cam Young up there. Cam Young's major. I mean, I want to reemphasize this again because we lose money betting this loser every week when he doesn't win. However, major championships have been amazing to Cam Young in his very short career. So let's take a look at Cam Young, and let's take a look at some of these. Let's see, 2nd at the Open Championship, 3rd at the PGA Championship in 2022, 7th at the Masters this year, 8th at the Open Championship, 7th at the Masters a year ago, 9th at the Masters this year, 8th at the Open Championship a year ago. That's 5 top 10s in majors. In how many major championship appearances? Oh yeah, 8. Zalatoris and Cameron Young have the biggest discrepancy between strokes gained total at major championships versus their baseline on the PGA Tour. So keep that in mind with those two guys. They should be locks in your DraftKings lineups this week. I don't care how they finish up at the Wells Fargo Championship. Irrelevant, erroneous information. You want to be playing both of those two guys. Got it? Good. We can keep that rolling then. So that's what we're looking at for the model rank. So one of the other things that we can do that's very cool as a part, very cool, very hip, like it was a German sausage or a German nightclub, but I don't know why that ended up going French at the end. But we can do the rolling report for this. So we can take the rolling report and we can weight this pretty easily. We can edit the rolling model and we can put our weightings in for whatever we want to do. Just weight them all the same to see how people go from the last 4 rounds to the last 12 rounds. Ideally, you'd probably want to rate 12, 24, 8, 12, and 24 higher than 50, then 100, then 4 coming in. But to see if it's any sort of difference, if you just weight it over time, you do get slightly different results than just the past 24 rounds, as obvious by when we're looking at it. You can see this is what we looked at right here for the past 24. This is what we're looking at for the past 8. Turns out Scotty Scheffler is very, very good. But when we look at the model overall, Scotty, Wyndham Clark, Rory, Ben An, Tony Finau. Then Hideki, Bryson, Keith Mitchell, Tyrrell Hatton, Dustin Johnson. That is the overall top 10. Then you got Xander, Thomas, Rahm, Brooks, Minwoo, Jaeger, Theegala, Adam Scott, Toasty, Pendrith. That's the top 20. And outside of that, some of your bigger names, Bhatia is number 23, Cam Smith, number 22, Luke Liston, Jordan Smith, 27 and 28. I have no idea what Jordan Smith has been up to on the DP World Tour so far this year. You should probably turn to the DP World Tour Picks and Bet shows Monday evening with Tom Jacobs and Skylar Hoke on the Mayo Media Network, because they will be previewing most of the players from both the Asian Tour and the DP World Tour who are in this field to find you values. Kitayama, he's up there as well. And it actually has some very good ball striking coming into this week. Shank is up there too, but Kitayama, to take a look at him, look at this ball striking. The tee to green has been awesome all year long. Just overall, tee to green, pretty good. And then before that, it was just ball striking, couldn't chip. Then he lost a bunch on his putting. You're probably not going to bet him to win this tournament, but at the same time, it's not the craziest thing, right? I do want to weight this to the parameters that I set. So I want to make 4 and 100 the same. And I want to make 8 a little bit lower than 12 and 24, which I'll have the highest, and I'll weight that the same as 50. Almost build like a little mini pyramid here for all the weightings, because I do want to throw this into my mixed condition model. And we'll see if this does give us any sort of different results on the matter. And it doesn't seem like it has. Even with those weightings, we got any new names jump up? Scheffler, Clark, Rory, Ben An, Finau, top 5 still. Hideki, Mitchell, Hatton, Xander, Bryson are the top 10. I'm probably going to end up betting Bryson this week. I just think that he's playing very well at the moment. He gears himself up for the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open and all the majors, and this is the right style of course for him. I would wish his around the green game was a little bit better. I'm guessing that's why he's getting hampered a little bit, but people really underrate how good Bryson is putting-wise. And I think that's going to play a major factor here. Brooks is after that, Minwoo. So no real new names. You see a bump up for Bhatia, a bump up for Jaeger, a bump up for Dustin Johnson. Dustin rating higher than Rahm is not something that I would have expected. Adam Scott rates out very well too. Kitayama is still up there. There's Connors. Kiyete Nakajima, Burmeister comes in at number 30. Cam Young is there at number 28. Spieth, Siwoo, Hoagie, they're all inside the top 50, along with Neiman and McNeely, Harris English. I like Russell Henley for this event. These are just the types of courses that he has played very well. But the main reason to do this was to throw this into the mixed condition model, where we're going to see if we can find a way to not make Scotty number 1. And rolling model, mixed condition model. Yes, we want the rolling model total results into this, and we're going to, last time I built one of these was at the Masters, so let's get rid of everything that was in the mixed condition model to date, except for the Valhalla rolling report of the custom stat model. So these are going to equal themselves out now, and as we change this in real time, you'll see your mixed condition model ranking change. So I want to completely wipe the slate again, and now we're going to go back to try to build some different things into the system. So we're going to go to my strokes gain model, which if you ever want to see it, I just have a bunch of different stuff up, where it's mainly weighted total, off the tee, approach weighted a little bit more, around the green and putting, tee to green marginally, as well, just as an amalgamation of those 3 things. But, ball striking and short game, I have weighted at 0 because they are combinations of the other one. I just like them up on the screen when I go and look at it. So the first thing that we're going to do is take a look at Jack Nicklaus Courses. Architect, Jack Nicklaus. There we go. And who do we see here? Average round, we have past 24 rounds in right now. That might be too many. If you're looking at the courses ever when one of these filters is clicked, just look here on the left-hand side. Glen Abbey, former host of the Canadian Open. Muirfield Village for both the Workday and Memorial Tournament. The Nicklaus Tournament course, the American Express. PGA National Champion for the, what was once known as the Honda Classic, now the Cognizant Classic. PGA West is a Nicklaus design along with Pete Dye and the Concession Golf Club, or Morikawa one, and Valhalla GC are all the courses that are included into this. So some guys' samples are going to be way off. So let's just take a look at the average and see who gains the most strokes. Nick Dunlap, that actually shouldn't be super shocking since he dominated at the American Express earlier this year to get his tour card as an amateur. So it's Dunlap. and Burmeister in 1 round. Outside of that, no, with 18 rounds, 2.76 average strokes gained per round, Colin Morikawa is by far the best player in the field. With 18 rounds at Nicklaus Courses, he has been amazing at these layouts. So, oh my God, Scheffler's number 3. Oh, that's tough. So Morikawa, Toasty only has the 1 round. We're going to throw out all the low round guys. We're going to say 10 rounds or more at these courses. So you have Morikawa, Eric Cole, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, John Rahm, Shane Lowry, Rory, Kim, Russell Henley, Max Homa, Victor Hovland, Will Zalatoris, Finau, Spieth, Denny McCarthy is up there as well. Chris Kirk and Xander are also very high up at Jack Nicklaus Courses. Anyone who's like really actively bad at this, Jake Knapp in 1 round with a lot of rounds. Let's see. Chad Ramey in 8 rounds at Nicklaus Courses has been piss poor. Malnati, Grayson, and Villegas have been bad. Blair and Hoagie have been really bad at Nicklaus Designs over the course of their career, as have John Daly. I guess that doesn't really matter. Alex Smalley has the Gim Reaper, who is the last man into the field so far. Cam Smith has played very poorly at Nicklaus Designs. Let's take a look at that more in depth. Which ones has he played? Memorial, he was always really bad. WGC Mexico at the concession, he was okay, but nothing great at the same time. He's just been really bad at Memorial over the years, is frankly what it comes down to. Guys that have been really good at Memorial, Bryson has a win there. Ben Anna's lost in a playoff there. Morikawa has won and lost in a playoff. Patrick Cantlay has won twice. Obviously, Rahm has won. Tiger won it myriad times. So maybe a nice look for John Rahm, who has very consistent, yet no upside on the Live Tour so far this season. Just based on his Memorial play, if that's something you wanted to look at. Someone like Mac Hughes has played really well at PGA National. Tommy Fleetwood, Alex Noren, Shane Lowry are others who have done very well at that venue over time. But those are the ones at Nicklaus Course. We're not going to weight Nicklaus Course a lot, but we're going to go strokes gained total at Jack Courses, and we're going to throw that in. We're going to weight it, pretty down there. It'll be at 9% for the moment, but that's just, it's going to be lower than that once we get around to it. Now let's take a look at long courses, because this is playing 7,600 yards. As I mentioned before, it is the third largest in terms of length so far this season. Let's clear all our filters and reset everything. Once again, you can always do that very handily at the top to see which filters are actually on in case something is there that you don't necessarily remember. So there's a lot of filters down this side. You can go all the majors. You can go just PGA Championship and US Open. You can go by the state of Kentucky if you really want to. But we're going to go to over 7,400 yard courses, and we're going to change that to average and difficult scoring relative to par, because we know this isn't going to play easy. So we'll just exclude Corrales and the easy rounds that it plays, or TPC Bunny Ranch, because we don't really want to talk about those too much. We'll do this past 24 rounds again. Scheffler, just more than double the next best player, who is Xander. Scheffler, Xander, Akshay, Homa, Rasmus, Højgaard. In only 6 rounds, but he gets himself up there as well. I bet you the Masters, in terms of strokes gained total, would be one for him. Now the Masters, I guess it wasn't meeting that criteria. So yeah, scoring average to difficult over 7,400, because I think it came in under just by like a shade for some of the rounds this time. Nate Lashley, really. Cam Smith. So Cam Smith, bad on Nicklaus courses, good on long courses in general. Sung Jae, who's having a career revitalization at the Wells Fargo Championship and doesn't look like a complete disaster, did win in Korea 3 weeks ago. Wyndham Clark, Rory, Ludwig, there's Jordan Smith again. Will Zalatoris, Brendan Todd, Russell Henley. So Todd and Henley are first appearance of Todd, another appearance of Henley. Let's put a star next to his name. Raman Brooks, there's Mathieu Pavon in only 15 rounds. Reed Connors, another mention of Connors that pops up. Hideki has been populating these a lot. So is Morikawa, Thigala, Lowry, Thomas. You see Cantlay is still up there a little bit. So we're going to throw in, and we're just going to sort by tee to green now and see what that tells us. Any sort of a different story? Yes, is actually the answer to that. Dustin, Connors, Scheffler, Matsuyama, Homa are the best tee to green in this sense. Whereas Connors loses strokes putting, and so does Brooks, who is next on the list. Brooks slightly positive with putting. Jordan Smith loses a bunch because that's what he does. He loses strokes around the green. Brooks is the one who lost them marginally around putting. But Jordan Smith, historically, very bad on the greens. Then you have Finau, Zalatoris, and Cam Young, also very good tee to green in this sense. This would be the one that I'd really be honing in on, the one I'll add to the mixed condition model over anything. Shocking to see Dustin up there, tee to green, however, on courses of this length. Other guys you have up there, Rory, Xander, Akshay again. I mean, Akshay is going to be popular. I hope he comes dead last at Wells Fargo, so not everyone is going to be on board. Griot, first appearance of him. We saw Siwoo, and there's Henley again. Gooch, Woodland, Chris Kirk, Morikawa, Cantley, Ryo Hisatune is up there as well. So is Fleetwood. Hoagie, despite the bad Nicklaus form, is better on these longer courses, as is the Glover lover. Then you have Wyndham Clark, who drops huge from, I believe, third on this list in total, mainly because he was gaining over 0.6 strokes per round on the greens, was bad around the greens and just like okay off the tee on approach when we take a look back at some of these longer courses over time. I wonder, mind you, if this is going to be something that we see Wells Fargo, if we just take a look by date, where does this go back to? So some of his rounds go back to 2021, when I would argue that he's really a different player overall. So if we take a look at his tee to green since basically, let's say last year in general. So he was bad at the Farmers, and he was good at the Arnold Palmer, and he's been great ever since. So since he won, and since last year's Bay Hill tournament, he has been excellent on courses of this length. So if you did want to shrink down the sample, maybe we can do that. Maybe that's something that's going to be a little bit more beneficial to what we're looking at the moment. We'll shrink the sample down to past 12 rounds to see if any new names come up, because burying Wyndham Clark that low on courses where he's played so well seems wrong. So we'll try to see if we can get it a bit more right in that sense. So now that we do it, Wyndham Clark ends up inside the top 10, which makes a lot more sense. Past 12 rounds, we're seeing Dustin, Scotty, Brooks, Hideki, Bhatia. Wow. Number 5 here. Connor's number 6. Glover, number 7. Finau is still up there as well. So we'll add Glover to that list because he continues to pop up. I'm just looking for guys towards the middle to back end of the field that we should be going with. Ann and Jagger are 2 others in that mid-tier that continuously pop their heads up. Hatton as well. It's not the first time that we've seen Hatton on any of these lists. Funny that Tiger is still up there at these long courses. Man, Henley, Hubbard, Putnam, Gooch, Duffner, really. Siwoo gets a more elevated ranking, as does, Jordan Smith continues to be up there. I got to throw on Jordan. I think it's Jordan Smith has appeared on enough of these lists now that I feel confident that we should probably look him up to see how he has been doing so far this year. Currently the world's number 97th ranked golfer, doing what he does. Actually, the results haven't been so bad. In the Jonas Workwear Open, he was T2 in South Africa. Then you have T21 in Germany, 37th in India, 24th at the ISPS Handa in Japan 3 weeks ago, T23 in China. So it's not been bad. He opened the year. I believe the Dubai Invitational is the one that Rory won. He was T4 to start the year. So only 2 missed cuts on the year. Again, these are against weaker fields on the DP World Tour. The DP World Tour has been as weak as it has ever been at the moment. They're stopping and starting, going to different parts of the world. But it is nice to see his consistency has been there. This is the one where Fleetwood beat Tommy and Thirsty Lawrence, and then you had Molinari, Jordan Smith, Thorbjorn Olesen, who ended up getting a win later on, the Marankadonk before he left for Liv, Guido, our guy, Rasmus Højgaard up there as well, Haotong, another guy who was once a 36-hole leader at a PGA Championship. That was in 2020 at TPC Harding Park. Then he grinded all night under the lights. And Cuss proclaimed that, of course, he was going to win. Look at him grinding on the course with the lights coming in. And then he just imploded on the weekend. So we're going to add tee to green past 12 rounds into the mixed condition model. We'll speed this up a little bit now to try to figure this all out for us. We can see in the mixed condition model, the mixed condition model does appear opposite. It doesn't matter what filters are on for the mixed condition model. They will give us the same results of just what we're looking at because they apply filters to themselves anyway. Bentgrass green putting is going to be the next on our list. So we can look at this one of 2 ways. I'm going to do bentgrass putting to begin with, and we'll take a look at the past 24 or so on bent. And we have a long sample of bent, although the recategorization, a lot of these has been iffy, to say the least. But we're going to take a look at your average, and we're going to take a look at putting. Your best putters right now, David Puig, who has been a sensation. He ended up winning on the Asian Tour, joined Liv. He's a fantastic young player who many who only follow the PGA Tour may not be very familiar with. A Spanish player, could be the new Rom, who knows, but he's still very young. Nakajima in 11 rounds has putted very well at the Bentgrass green complexes so far on the PGA Tour. Denny, Keimer, Hatton, Poston. Don't use Poston. Poston only plays well in crappy events, does not play well in strong field events. Fitzpatrick, Hovland, Lucas Herbert, McNeely. There's Cam Smith again. Okay, there's Harris English. I like Harris English for this event, so I'm just going to start him anyway. Max Homa, another one. Keegan Bradley. We've seen Keegan Bradley's name pop up a few times. It's not been a great go for Keegan Bradley recently. Wyndham Clark, Sahith Tagala, Xander Burns, Vic Perez, Olesen, who we just mentioned, Taylor Montgomery. There's Brendan Todd again. Not shocking to see him up there. So I wonder if there's any exceptionally bad putters. Toasty, horrible in 2 rounds. Small sample. In large samples, Bjork bad. Woodland, Bobby Mack, Zalatoris bad on bent. But when we do the major championships, that might smooth itself out too. Bhatia, there's his big detraction, although his putting has drastically improved since he went to the long putter. Now, that's just a fact at this point. You see his putting results, has not lost in any tournament since the Players' Championship in March. Had 2 spike putting rounds earlier than that, but when he first came onto tour, it was bad. Like last summer was bad for him on the greens, a lot of those Bentgrass greens. Now, we haven't seen a lot of Bentgrass so far on tour this year, so maybe he is still negatively impacted by that and can't figure out the right speeds, the right distances, whatever it might be. No touch on those greens, or he has actually improved his putting game because he's improved every other part of his game. That's the one thing when you look back at some of these historic stats is that, well, is he the same player as he was 2 years ago? Is he better? Is he worse? Who knows? I mean, that's what makes a lot of this difficult, right? So strokes gained putting on Bentgrass, we will throw that into the mixed condition model. We'll weight it, we'll work on the weightings afterwards. So let's clear that out. And I am going to stick with putting, but what I'm going to do is use the PGA Championship and US Open only. We don't have strokes gained metrics for the Masters or the Open Championship. Maybe we do for the Open Championship. I can never remember. I'm going to throw those in. I know that we do not for Masters because that is proprietary to the Masters. I mean, people can scrape them, but we do not do that because we have an official contract with ShotLink and the PGA, and we do not want our license taken away. So past 24 major championship average putting. Let's see here. Now we're just talking, I guess we have Congressional in there. Congressional Blue, Hazeltine, Oak Hill Country Club, Oakmont. Okay, so we do have everything in here for all of those. Andy Ogletree in 2 rounds. Camillo Villegas, Puig, Andrew Spovda. Someone's got a case of the Spovdas. Rose. I wonder I think it might just be taking PGA Championship data, though, if we look at it for strokes gained putting. Oh, no, we do have U.S. Open putting as well. So it's just the U.S. Open, but not U.S. Open from every year, U.S. Open from select years. That's always fun. Great. Thanks for the help, USGA, on this front. But over the past 24 rounds, let's go past 12 of these to see if there's anyone who sticks out. This might not be the right avenue. I might not even add this in when it goes down to it because there just might not be enough data to tell us anything. Cam Smith, Hatton, there's Harris English again. Sam Burns, Brooks, no shocker there. Minwoo has putted very well, so has Mac Hughes in major championships. All right, let's just kind of throw all these out. Let's not look at the putting for those. We'll stick with just Bentgrass putting and maybe regular putting overall, but I will just isolate PGA Championship and US Open to get a sense, and we'll go past 24 rounds to see who has been the best overall at these tournaments, because I really do think that means a ton. In this sense, we'll go to average strokes gained total. Scheffler, Rory, Zalatoris, Xander, Bryson are your top 5. Brooks, Rahm, Morikawa, Fitz, Minwoo, Lee are next on that list. Any weird outliers? Eckroat only has 6 rounds, but he's been good. Harris English, Ricky Fowler, Lucas Glover, Shane Lowry, Patrick Reed are up there. I skipped over Cantlay, Hideki, Hovland. You know that they're good players and they've played well at majors. Trying to find those outliers. Jordan Smith, in only 14 rounds, has done very well. Denny has done really well. Hatton, Wyndham Clark, Pendrith. So we're going to add this one in, and we'll go strokes gained total over that time. And the final thing that we're going to throw in here, as we update it again, as Scheffler continues just to be number 1 in all of this stuff, to clear it out, we're going to go to difficult courses. We'll go difficult to average, and average to long rough length to really try to get the specifics of this on the go. And we can go over 400. Yeah, we already kind of looked at the over 7,400 design. We don't need to go major championships. don't really know about the firmness of anything, so we're just going to throw these 4 into a bucket. So scoring needs to be average to hard versus the field versus your average event, and the rough length needs to be long to average. So get rid of the really easy courses. Who plays difficult courses really well? Over the past 24 rounds, we can probably take a look at the rolling model of this as well if we really want to, but we'll take a look at the average, and it's going to be, Scotty Scheffler, big shocker. Scheffler, Xander Noren, Matsuyama, Billy Horschel, who just did recently win on the PGA Tour, albeit in an alternate field event, but still, it's good to see that he plays hard courses well. Clark, Bhatia, Cam Smith, Reed, and Siwoo Kim would be next on that list. McIlroy, Shank, Bryson, Thigala, Mac Hughes. It's the second sighting of Mac Hughes as a deeper player, and I like him at Nicklaus Courses as well. Brooks, Henley again, McNeely, Vic Perez, Ben Griffin. Jordan Smith is the king of these. Harris English, Zalatoris, Tom Hoagie, Keith Mitchell. So let's throw in strokes gain total to this as well. We want to select strokes gain total, throw that in for the different parameters that we just set, and maybe we'll take a look at, we did PGA Championship and US Open. That's probably good enough instead of including all the majors. If you really do want to know, you can just click on all the majors and see who are the best players over the past 2 years. You can always sort it by years as well, as we see on the left-hand side. Now, quickly, you can take a look at the mixed condition model rankings. They will just populate on your main screen, or you can go to the top and see all the tools. This is a tool that I really like. This is the over-under tool. This will be for the PGA Championship. This is what I use for Underdog. You type in the player's name. So you say, hey, I want Brooks Koepka. And I want to say, and this calculates his probability. Now, these are all amendable by whatever comes up that day. On Underdog, you're looking for your over, under of strokes, bogeys or worse, fairways, greens and regulation. So over, under 12.5 greens and regulation. The over of that only hits at around a 30% clip, and you can expand this detail to see his recent results, player on the course results, his historic player versus course results, everything like that to try to get a sense of how he has been playing on courses that are similar to these and how those numbers line up on Underdog. Once again, code Mayo on Underdog Fantasy to get a deposit bonus of up to $250 and a free square for the PGA Championship, and nothing will do more to help out this show than you using code Mayo at Underdog Fantasy. All right? Thanks for the help. Mixed condition model is right next to it on the screen. So we can see all the weightings that we got. So Valhalla rolling report, we're going to put this down around 30%. Strokes gain total on Jack courses. We saw that wasn't really the most important thing going. So we'll do that. You know what? We're going to throw one more thing into here before I forget. I know it's a part of the mixed condition model, but what I want to go to is fairways and greens. If driving distance is really going to be that important, well, it is a part of the rolling model that we did put in. I do think that we want to go to average long, average difficult, and this is where we will throw in the 7,400 yards as well. So longer courses that we have to go to. So long courses, I probably need to re-up this a little bit. Reset the page. If anything ever just kind of stalls out on you because too many filters are clicked, all you got to do is just reset everything and it will make things very easy on you. So we will go to 7,400 yards. And we want to go with, where's difficult? We wanted rough length, long, and average. And we will apply those filters and go to driving distance once this loads for us. So it's loaded, and we will go to, we can go to total adjusted driving, which is a model that I made for myself. But we just easily go to fairways and greens and see what that populates. We got the filters doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Past 24 rounds on courses that meet these. And you can see Baltusrol, Bay Hill, Bethpage Black, in it for some people. So Ben Ann, I would say, is your typical run-of-the-mill PGA Tour player where he plays a lot. So you got Valero, Arnold Palmer, Wells Fargo from last year, Valero, Farmers. So you got a lot of those. He didn't play in a lot of the majors, so they're not going to be accredited to him. We take a look at the average driving distance. Rory, Dustin, Bryson, Rasmus Højgaard, Cam Young, Crazy Carl Wan, Minwoo Lee, John Daly, the Burmista Mista lady, Maranka Donk, Andy Ogletree, Ludwig. So that's a better example, I think, of guys who are using their distance to their advantage on courses like this overall. So I want to add that to the mixed condition model as well. I want to put driving distance in there to make sure that is weighted, because that is what we saw rear its ugly head, or positive head, I suppose. So the rolling model will drop down to there. Driving distance will bump up to around 19. Strokes gained total last 24. That's just overall. So let's put that up there as well, because we did want to see recent form, gauge that coming in. Last 24 PGA Championship, US Open. Yeah, I think that should be just below recent form coming in. The putting on bent will rank up there as well. Tee to green, we'll put just below driving distance, and then the jack one will rate pretty low. So 26, 17, 16, different weightings for all of these things. Now we'll update our mixed condition model, and we'll jump back over to it at the very top of the screen to see what our results are gonna be. And we have everything weighted in. So let's see. We have Scotty. So these are the official power rankings for the 2024 PGA Championship. By the way, it's no luck that Scotty's going to play. I have no idea if his wife had the baby yet, but it's way more of an issue this time around than it was last time around at the Masters. Scheffler, McIlroy, Wyndham Clark, Dustin Johnson, Xander Schauffele, the top 5. Bryson, Brooks, Rahm, Hatton, Matsuyama, the next to fill out the top 10. The next 10, Finau, Hovland, Keith Mitchell, Justin Thomas, Cam Young, Cantlay, Theegala, Ben An, Adam Scott, Joaquin Niemann. Fitzpatrick, Noren, Bhatia, Burns, Cam Smith, Harris English, Zalatoris, McCarthy, Shank, Homa, Fleetwood, Lowry, and then you get your spatterings of Morikawa, Min Woo, Corey Connors, Lucas Glover, Steven Yeager, Jordan Smith, Keegan Bradley, all guys that kept popping up around. They're all inside the top 50 this week for the PGA Championship. And that'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience Research Show. Again, fantasynational.com/Mayo gets you 20%. You can dig in any way that you want. We have beaucoup content coming for you. I got my entire article coming out in the newsletter, the weather report, everything like that will be updated every single day. It's completely free to subscribe to, and you get ballots in the draw for the $500 giveaway, the 2 Fantasy National memberships, the Ship It Nation membership. We might even add more giveaways, or maybe save them for the US Open. Who knows on that front? The big one you can do, code Mayo at underdogfantasy.com. Right now, get a bonus deposit of potentially up to $250, and you get a free square for the PGA Championship. Probably over under half a stroke for Justin Thomas or Scotty Scheffler. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but it's one that can't lose. So I would recommend that you do that if you are a new customer, and boom, you help out the show immensely. All those giveaways, how you get your ballots, are in the description right now. The Instagram account's a big one. We're trying to build that up. We have a lot of short clips, so the more condensed version of these shows are up there as well. Smash the like while you're here. The bets so far that are going to be in: Brooks, Theegala, Wyndham Clark. Wyndham Clark at 66-1, Theegala at 66-1, Brooks at 16-1. Still waiting on that one. After doing this walkthrough and doing the research, it does seem like maybe taking a shot on Keegan Bradley isn't the craziest thing in the world. Never thought I would say that in a million years. But we also have Bryson, maybe Dustin, depending on what his number gets to, Morikawa, Russell Henley. I'm not betting all of these guys, but these guys are now on the short list for me. Jordan Smith apparently is fantastic. The Burmista lady, Dean Burmeister, needs to be considered up there as well. And Will Zalatoris and Cam Young, just based off their play at major championships overall. I will be back on Monday morning with Jeff Feinberg and Tim Undercust to make our bets, pick our one and dones, and break down the field. Tuesday, I got the best bet show with Cam and Raza. Wednesday, me and Tambo, he'll be in studio breaking down all the final bets, the weather, and DraftKings plays, lineups, and ownership. And then on, let's see here, Thursday, NFL release show with Jeff, me, and Tim. That's happening. And then Friday, Cut Sweats live on the Mayo Media Network, where we will give you a better broadcast than anything that you are watching as a companion piece to the main feed on CBS this week. Thank you all for watching. I'm fired up for the PGA Championship, and I hope you are too, all right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!